Welcome to The Orbit. I'm Valtuem, and I talk all things sci-fi and fantasy. Spoiler warning for Captain America: Brave New World. This movie is bizarre on so many levels. One is that it's full of Hulk characters, and directly continues plotlines from The Incredible Hulk. But it's a Captain America movie of all things, and Hulk's not even in it. As someone who's studied MCU Hulk quite extensively, let's see just how well Brave New World handles these elements. We learned that after the events of The Incredible Hulk, Ross pinned the blame for Abomination's rampage on Samuel Stearns. Stearns gained enhanced intelligence from Bruce's blood, so Ross stuck him in a secret prison, pumped him full of gamma, and turned him into a super genius. For 16 years, Ross has been using Stearns to invent high-tech weapons, develop a cure for his heart condition, and devise a plan to make him president. Is this something Ross would do? He was obsessed with capturing Bruce to replicate the Hulk. He wanted to harness that power for the US military and to boost his career.
He's a fugitive.
You made him a fugitive to cover your failures and to protect your career.
From that perspective, sure, Ross would do this. However, it would be supremely stupid of him to make the exact same mistake again. The Abomination disaster happened because he recklessly experimented on an unstable person he failed to control. Ross isn't dumb. I can see him making Stearns take the fall to save himself, but I don't think he'd start experimenting on him. Civil War revealed Ross had a serious heart attack in 2011. He then had more heart-related issues during Black Widow in 2016. Brave New World is set in 2027, so we can assume he's been taking the medication Stearns made for him for at least 11 years. And it turns out Stearns has been using these pills to slowly gamma poison him. Wait. Ross willingly ingested something the resentful super genius made for him, and he did so while taking no measures to verify what was even in the pills?
So he's an idiot.
They've really dumbed this dude down. In Brave New World, Ross is trying to make a change, to be selfless for once, to do what's best for the people and not just himself. It's implied that the blip largely inspired this change, so it's a motivation that doesn't come out of nowhere. However, Ross's bad reputation proves a constant obstacle. People deride him as the Hulk Hunter, which makes sense. Once Bruce became a well-known hero, public opinion would turn against the man that once made him a fugitive. Ross struggles to overcome his past, to convince people of his sincerity. What doesn't help is his propensity to fall back on old methods, and to butt heads with people he needs on his side. I find it a genuinely interesting direction to take his character, or at least it would have been. As I'll explain, multiple factors prevent this arc from working. Ross wants to become president, to secure a brighter future for the US and the world, so he promises to release Stearns if he helps him get elected. Ross wins, but he flakes on the deal, too afraid of losing access to the pills. It's his fear of dying before securing his legacy that prevents him from keeping his promise. Except there's an obvious workaround. Have Stearns write down the formula so they can recreate the pills without him. You could argue Ross would be too afraid of his crimes getting exposed to let him go, but not a single character brings this up as a concern. So, Brave New World portrays Ross as someone who's always been bursting with barely contained rage, but that's not really accurate. From The Incredible Hulk to Black Widow, Ross was characterized as cold and cutthroat. He's very in control of himself.
It threw a forklift truck like it was a softball!
Well, it's gone.
I used to wonder why she never talked about you. Now I know.
Where does she meet these guys?
I will never forgive what you've done to him.
He's a fugitive.
Don't ever speak to me as your daughter again.
It's only because you're my daughter that you're not in handcuffs, too.
It actually would have been more interesting if, like Bruce, he was someone who repressed his anger, so when he becomes the Red Hulk, that inner rage is brought to the surface, to express an unseen aspect of his character. Speaking of Red Hulk, Ross becomes the thing he both desired and hated most. He gets what he always wanted, the power of the Hulk, just not in the way he wanted. After transforming, Ross catches his reflection and freaks out. He's turned into the very thing that's come to represent all his sins and regrets. He's become the monster that people believe him to be. Ross is eventually talked down by Sam. This shouldn't work. Bruce was able to get talked down by people with a meaningfully positive and calming influence on him. Not just anyone could do it. Sam don't mean shit to Ross. If anything, he's an irritant. The person that should have talked him down is Betty. It's perfectly set up too. Ross is trying to change for Betty, to make up for what he did to Bruce. he reminisces about how they used to walk together by the cherry blossoms, only for the climax to bring them to that very location. If Betty showed up in that moment, that surely would have calmed his red ass down. Despite being turned into a physical monster, Betty accepts him, because he's no longer a monster on the inside. She has a history of seeing the man beneath the beast, after all.
But then it's still you, inside it. Maybe your mind is in there, it's just overcharged.
She eventually does talk to Ross, but that's after all this. Speaking of Betty, she's back. After being deliberately ignored in favor of giving Bruce a new relationship that was then deliberately ignored, she's finally been acknowledged again. And she's in the movie. It's basically a cameo. Honestly, there's not much to say about it. On the topic of characters finally returning, we have Samuel Stearns. I've always worried about how the MCU would reincorporate him. The longer he was gone, the more difficult it would be to account for his absence. Where is he? And what has he been doing this whole time? Brave New World tries and fails to adequately answer these questions. We're told he was locked up for 16 years. In this movie, he escapes easily, which makes me question why he waited so long to do so. Ross promised to free him after he became president. And aside from the pills, Stearns doesn't enact his revenge until after this deal is broken. Was he counting on Ross to actually let him go? No, he predicted Ross never would. So, again, why willingly sit in prison for 16 years? Was it all for his long-term revenge? Because we'll get to his master plan in a second. Just know it did not require 16 years. In The Incredible Hulk, some of Bruce's blood got into his wound, like what happened to Jen, except instead of turning him into a turbo bitch, it turned him into a super genius. Sort of. Stearns devises a plan to destroy Ross's legacy. Let's run through it, shall we? First, he slowly gamma poisons Ross to eventually turn him into a Hulk. Because of his extensive research on Bruce's blood, the idea that he could recreate the Hulk is entirely believable. If anything, he's the one guy I could buy doing it.
He was a freak accident. The goal is to do it better.
The movie states Ross's pills have gamma radiation. I've talked about this before on my other channel, but the Incredible Hulk establishes two primary mechanisms for Hulkification. One is an extremely high dose of gamma. The second is the primer in Bruce's blood, aka the radiation resistance serum. Brave New World accounts for the former, but not the latter. If we want to be charitable, we can assume the primer was administered to Ross during one of his visits to Stearns' lab. I'm willing to let the movie have that. Which means Ross's transformation into a Hulk makes way more sense than Jen's. So the movie's got that going for it, at least. Anyway, Stearns slowly turns Ross into a Hulk over a decade. But was it necessary to do it in such a slow-ass way? Why not simply mind control Ross when he comes for a visit, and perform an improved version of the Blonsky experiment on him? He seems to want to time Ross's first Hulk out with the outbreak of war over Celestial Island's adamantium. But that only came into existence recently. What was Stearns originally waiting for during the first decade of imprisonment? Setting that issue aside, Stearns sets his sights on ruining the treaty Ross is aiming to pass, which would share adamantium fairly with the other nations. To do so, he hires Sidewinder to steal Japan's adamantium, counting on Sam to recover and return it. He needs this event to occur, because he'll later leak info to Japan to make it seem like Ross deliberately set this up in some nefarious scheme. But before the leak, he orchestrates an attack on the White House, using a bunch of mind-controlled individuals to attack, but not kill, Ross. As far as I can tell, this mainly serves to make Ross appear weak and inept. But was this necessary? The info leak to Japan is more than enough to tear apart the treaty. If anything, orchestrating an attack on Ross encourages various parties to start investigating, which could lead back to him. He even deliberately targets Isaiah, Sam's close friend, giving Sam a personal stake in finding the real perpetrator, i.e. his bitch ass. Spoiler alert, this directly leads to his defeat.
Not a great plan.
Let's talk about this mind control for a sec. Stearns uses people's optogenetic data to design a series of flashing lights that implant commands into their subconscious. He then triggers these commands with a specific song. Flashing lights are enough to turn someone into an unwaveringly obedient, mindless servant, able to act out complex and nuanced orders. Do I even need to explain why this is batshit crazy? The MCU already has established means of mind control. Did we need to add another? Especially one so poorly thought through? If it's this easy, why not simply mind control Ross and make him declare war? There'd be no need to do any of this other bullshit. Back to his master plan. To deal with Sam, Stearns rehires Sidewinder to kill him. He fails, which Stearns predicted would happen? It's unclear. When he calls Sidewinder's phone, Sam answers, but he acts like he expected this. The call lets Sam track his location. During my first viewing, I thought, obviously this is part of his plan. He's luring Sam to him for some purpose. But no. Apparently he didn't want that at all, and has to take measures to try and stop him. So why call him in the first place? And he's a super genius, for fuck's sake. He can't make his calls untraceable? Stearns orchestrates an attack on Isaiah's prison to make Sam turn back. This fails, which surprises him, even though it shouldn't. Isaiah's a super soldier. He can take care of himself. And Sam's already pretty close to Stearns' location when he gets the news. If Stearns really wanted to stop Sam, he should attack him, not Isaiah. When Sam and friend arrive, Stearns sicks his mind-controlled security guards on them while he escapes. Even though he could have just killed them with the sonic weapon he uses later. It's literally as easy as turning a dial to make their hearts explode.
When you have to shoot, don't talk.
This is some Bond villain schlock. Getting back on track, Stearns sabotages Ross's treaty and incites a war, but Sam foils his plans. So, during a presidential press conference, he turns himself in. At the same time, articles about his illegal imprisonment at Ross's hands get leaked to the public. He also hacks the event speakers and plays an incriminating phone call between him and Ross. This enrages Ross enough to finally make him Hulk out. Why did Stearns turn himself in? Given the articles released before he could even reach a jail cell, Stearns must have arranged for this to happen regardless of whatever he was doing at the time. In that case, turning himself in served literally no purpose. In fact, it only alerted Sam that something was wrong with Ross sooner than he would have originally known, letting him act more quickly.
He's smart, but I guess not that smart.
This was a pointlessly disadvantageous action. And that's Stearns' master plan. What can we deduce from this? He's fucking stupid. He's meant to be big brain, yet almost nothing he does makes sense. This is what happens when not too smart writers try to write a super genius. Their idea of superintelligence consists of overly complicated plans that rely on everyone else being brain dead, and straight up clairvoyance.
It's so dumb.
It's so dumb, it's brilliant.
No! It's just dumb!
Setting aside Stearns' nonsensical plan, how accurately is he characterized? In The Incredible Hulk, Stearns was obsessed with scientific discovery, to the point of recklessness.
I've always been more curious than cautious.
He was enamored with the power of the Hulk, heedless of Bruce's warnings.
You've seen what he becomes, right? I have, and it's beautiful, godlike.
Stearns did extensive experimentation with Bruce's blood, interested in using it for the advancement of mankind.
This is potentially Olympian. This gamma technology has limitless applications. We will make humans impervious to disease.
Does this carry over to Brave New World? Not even a little. Dude became a super genius stuck in a lab for 16 years, but didn't pursue any of the scientific advancements he initially wanted to. Stearns now only cares about revenge. And that's it. He's devolved into a one-dimensional villain. At least he's alive at the end of this, so there's always the chance of bringing him back and repairing some of the damage done to his character. But I'm not holding my breath. Let's talk Hulk. He ain't in this thing, and that's disappointing. In a lot of ways, Brave New World is a direct sequel to The Incredible Hulk, but without Hulk. And it's not like he ain't around. Smart Hulk returned from space at the end of She-Hulk, which takes place in 2025. Brave New World is set in 2027, so as far as we know, he's on Earth right now. Is Hulk not interested that Ross, the man who hunted him for years, is now the freaking president? And did Bruce never check on Stearns after what happened in Harlem? Not to make sure he survived the destruction, and not even to ensure his blood samples got destroyed? Was Bruce not concerned to learn that Stearns, not Ross, was blamed for the Abomination's rampage? I guess Hulk's just an asshole. His absence marks a wasted opportunity. Any interesting parallels between Bruce and Ross, and any closure between Bruce and Betty, is lost. It's been almost 20 years, and Hulk has yet to canonically interact with any of the characters from his own movie.
It's bullshit.
How well does Brave New World handle these Hulk elements? Yeah. Ross and Stearns have been severely mischaracterized. Betty makes a cameo, and Hulk is missing.
Sad? So sad.
Huh. It just occurred to me. Aside from Betty, every significant character from The Incredible Hulk has now been character assassinated. That's just great. Thanks for watching. What do you think of Brave New World's Hulk elements? Please like and subscribe for more videos in the same vein. I might make more videos on Brave New World, so stay tuned. And I've got a bunch of Hulk videos on my other channel, so check that out in the meantime. I'll see you on the orbit.